So we think grief is like crying or sadness, but it can look like overspending. It can look like overeating. It can look like any number of things.
Hello there. You're listening to the Girl Talk Podcast. My name is Carol.
I'm Kelly.
Hey, I'm Tricia.
Glad you've joined us today. We're going to be talking about grief today. Now, wait, before you go away, I want you to know that grief is not just when you've lost someone you love. There are different kinds of grief, and we've titled this podcast Hidden Grief. Let's kind of unpack what that means. When people say grief, they automatically think that you've lost someone that you love, and that is definitely grief, 100%. But there can also be grief like a wayward child. You're grieving the loss of that. Maybe a health diagnosis, and you're grieving the loss of your health. It can be any kind of trauma that you've suffered. I know in our area, we're just a year and a little bit out from Helene striking our area, and boy, that's a grief like no other. So there's lots of different kinds of grief. And the reason that we're doing this podcast today is because I think it can show up in our lives in a lot of different ways, and we aren't really ready for it. And we probably wouldn't call it grief, but that's actually what it is. So could you have grief that you haven't fully processed? I'm going to turn to you, Tricia, because you kind of have that social work background and know the world of trauma. And so can you have hidden grief, and how does it show itself?
Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. Trauma, loss of what you thought life was going to be like, loss of what you had,
Loss of a marriage.
what you dreamed of. Yes, loss of a marriage, loss of your plan. It really is any kind of loss. So think about any kind of loss.
Job loss?
Job loss. Even
Reputation?
memory loss.
Yes.
I mean, all kinds of loss. It's the experience of grief can look so different. It can look like addiction. It can look like obsession. It can look like can look like anger.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Any sort of a reaction. Yeah. So we think grief is like crying or sadness, but it can look like overspending. It can look like overeating. It can look like any number of things. So opening up the understanding and the idea of what grief is will help. So maybe you have feelings that you can't explain. That might be a grief. That might be a loss experience.
Okay.
So opening up our understanding that grief is not just crying or depression.
Yeah.
It's any kind of behavior and feeling that you can't explain.
Yeah.
Coming from a loss.
And what do you do at that point? Like if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, I'm not sure if I have any of those things. I can identify what it is. How do you go about like really peeling back the layers and understanding what it is that is behind all of this?
Well, first of all, I would say give yourself a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
Okay. The harder we fight to avoid negative experiences and feelings, the worse they come after us. So giving yourself just a little bit of grace to experience a negative emotion, it's okay. Christian counseling, I think, is going to be the best place. I know it's been the best place for me.
Yeah.
I have some traumatic experiences in my background that have led to grief and behaviors that result from grief. And I think strengthening my relationship, like turning to God and then going into Christian counseling and the right kind of finding the right person, I think is also helpful. I've tried several different kinds of Christian counseling experiences, and I feel like I finally found a relationship that is really working for me right now. He challenges me in the right way, but we are together in that room peeling back some of the layers of that start with behavior, and then you peel that back and go, well, why did I act like that, or why do I feel like that? Peeling that back to earlier experiences and earlier traumatic experiences. And I've landed on some real early trauma that I never thought was dictating the way I behave as a 55-year-old woman, coming from like early years. So understanding that with the support of someone.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. I will also say, and this might just be me, I don't know, when I avoid quiet. Here's what I mean by that. There's sometimes that I will take noise everywhere I go because there are things that I don't want to talk to God about and I don't want God talking to me about. And I think that can be a kind of grief. When I'm not talking to God about it and I don't want him to talk to me about it, that is the
Like
wrong
avoidance.
kind of grief.
You're talking about avoidance.
100% avoidance.
Yes.
And afraid of the quiet because you don't want to know what's going to come up. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons people avoid counseling, because they're like, I don't know what's going to come out when I get in there, especially if you don't know exactly what it is. I think that can be a scary like monster hiding behind the door. Like you're like, okay, when I start peeling back the layers, what am I going to find?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that my therapist was talking about for me was like a panic reaction. Let's say panic reaction. He said the harder you fight against having a panic reaction, the worse you're going to have a panic reaction. So it's a little bit like that avoidance thing. Just makes the experience worse in a lot of ways. It might put it off for some period of time, but you will have to go through the experience. You will have to experience it.
What my experience has been is that if I avoid it long enough, then it comes out and I take it out on people that have nothing to do with it.
That's those behaviors.
And that is the point where I realize, my goodness, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to y'all?
Yeah.
Like I'll snap at my kid or something and I'm like, why did I just do that? That's not what I want for our relationship, and Lord knows I've had to apologize more times than I can even count with her. But I think that part of that is hidden grief. Like, I mean, we've talked about it a lot here. Is like our kids are getting older and getting ready to. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to cry here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Well, you are allowed to cry.
okay, you are.
It's okay.
But I think as we talk about that, I mean, that's a kind of grief, you know.
Absolutely.
So
a pre-grief.
yeah, there's all those kinds of things, and I think that for a lot of my life, I just thought grief was losing somebody that you love. I didn't understand and being sad about it.
Yeah.
I read a book. It's by Jerry Sitzer, and he the name of it is escaping me right at the moment. We'll drop that in the comments as well. But he writes that he thought. He's experienced terrible grief in his life. He lost his wife, his mother, and a daughter, I think, in a car accident. And he said, I thought that running away from the darkness would get me back to the light. But what I found is running into the darkness is actually where I got to the light the quickest. And I think that that just completely changed things because somebody gave that to me after my divorce. And I'd never thought of a divorce being a grief, but it was so true. And I wrote a blog after that called What Do You Do After the Death of a Dream? Or What Do You Wear to the Death of a Dream? And I just had never considered that grief could be anything but mourning someone that you love. That it could be mourning a relationship or mourning a job or mourning a.
And I think sometimes too we think of grief as being as coming because of a single event or because of a one-time traumatic thing like the loss of a person. You know, a person you lose them and they're gone. But sometimes it can just be the slow fade away from a dream, you know, that you have this dream and all of a sudden you wake up 20 years later and go, oh, where did that dream go? You know, oh, man. You know, and you have some of those grief experiences by just watching what you thought was going to be not be the thing that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's not just a one-time thing.
Right. And it's not linear either, oftentimes. It can be, like you said, someone died, I'm sad, and I'm experiencing grief. But that grief reaction can come years later, and it can look completely different than you think that it did. But yes, the grief of a dream, the loss of what you thought life was going to be like.
Yeah.
We're having a situation. My husband's back has been really bad for a long time now, and we're starting to realize this is going to be our life. And there is a grief in that.
Yeah. Because he's always been very active and he's limited now.
And now things are different. And you can't just absorb something big in your life, a big change in your life. You can't expect yourself to absorb it without some emotions,
right?
And a process. I always talk about grief share. That is specific. It's a Bible study that's put on in churches specifically for people who've lost people. But I got so much more out of it than just mourning the death of my parents, which I did. It's also about the different kinds of grief and the different reactions we have. And there are people that would come to Grief Share who lost a spouse 23 years ago.
Yeah.
But they're just now ready to go and start to peel back those layers. Because it's hard, but they were stuck. They were stuck in their grief. And because they were stuck in their grief, they couldn't progress with their life.
Yeah.
So it matters that you take that step to address the grief in your life. And with a counselor, with friends, with a Christian community, taking that step, because we can stay stuck in grief for decades.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and processing that too through prayer and journaling with God.
Yeah,
I think also is really helpful. If you, for instance, don't have access to a Grief Share group or don't have what you feel like is the tools that we've talked about that have helped us, there's all kinds of books you can buy. There's journaling prompts you can walk yourself through that just help you kind of get some of that out and really process your own emotions and your own thoughts around your grief.
I will say, be careful about doing it all by yourself.
Yes.
Because this old girl right here, as social as I am, tried to do it by myself, and I just got myself further down in the hole because I couldn't see hope. And sometimes you need a friend to see hope for you. Sometimes you need a community to see hope for you. Sometimes you need a counselor to see hope for you. And when you're stuck in those areas, all the I'm a big journaler, and then I got to the point where I was like, if I die and someone finds my journal, this will be proof that I'm a nut job, okay?
We've already handled that.
We got
Tricia
you,
and I are
right?
going to come and
We got
destroy
you.
them.
Yeah. My mom's gone on to heaven, so the lipstick is not that important anymore, but the journals still are. You know, my mom was always, she was like, you need a little lipstick. You need some lipstick. But journaling got me farther down in the hole because
isolation.
It was isolation. Yeah. I was shutting the blinds and I was doing that all, and it was just, I was going inward, and I would show up in the places where I needed to show up, AKA ministry and on the radio, and be, hey, everything's great. Jazz hands. And I would go home and completely fall apart. And I got into a dangerous habit of doing that. And then I didn't let anybody in, and it led to some really bad choices, and it led me down to I'll tell you my story one day about the Beth Moore conference I went to. Anyway, it led me down a bad road, and I don't want that for you, and I don't think any of us want it for people that we love. And so, but here's the thing: it can be hard to ask people to join you in your grief because people just want you to feel better.
Yeah,
and that's not always the right thing to say. And we've talked about it before here, that sometimes people say the dumbest things at funerals.
Yeah, you've got to be really careful who you invite into that
grief.
Into that space as you're processing all of that.
Yeah,
somebody who's going to be real encouragement, really point you to Jesus and not point you elsewhere.
Yeah,
to solve your problems.
Yeah,
we'll keep you focused on Him.
Yes,
grounded. Yep.
Yeah, and like Tricia said, a lot of times that requires the help of someone who's trained, a Christian counselor. There's a lot of them out there. It's hard to get in to see them because they're so in demand, because mental health has become such a crisis in our country. But I wanted to warn against that, because that was not good for me. When I stopped making eye contact with people and started just going insular, I just got farther down, and you can do that. So I would say, if you're going to try to do the journaling and the things, just be vulnerable enough with somebody else to let them join you. And if you don't have anybody who you trust, it might be time to look for professional help.
And I think there, in support of what you're saying, our friends can't always do it for us. Even as well-meaning as they are, they aren't able to take the step back to see things clearly. I mean, it's not that friend support doesn't help, because it does. Christian support from your friends is huge. But just putting that peg in the board there for a professional, they're able to see more objectively, and they're able to speak truth to you or to me more sometimes than a friend can.
Well, because you have so many emotions with a friend.
Yeah.
You know, a counselor can say something and you're like, I'm paying him to say that to me. And that's, you know, you can go home and pout. And not schedule another appointment. That is not helpful either. Trust me, I know. But when a friend says it, you know, that's
more loaded.
Yeah, it's more loaded. And both, what I found is the magic formula for getting unstuck is Christian counseling, a close friend, and community. I mean, I can't say that enough, because all three have played a vital part in my healing, and especially some of that hidden grief that I still process through. It's vital that you have somebody, a professional, and then a friend, and then a community that can embrace you and help you to grow in your faith. What else would you add to the discussion here about the steps you can take to process through grief with somebody?
I think part of it is really recognizing that that's what you're dealing with. And some of that takes some initial soul searching to say, what is this I'm dealing with? I haven't, lost a loved one necessarily. I haven't lost a job. I haven't lost a marriage. But I just feel this underlying sadness, or this underlying that things aren't right in the world.
Or you're doing a behavior that's not
right. Yeah. Or you have behaviors that are, clearly not appropriate. Really doing some work with God on that. What is it that you are, that has happened? What is it that you're really sad about, that you're really dealing with? Maybe it's the loss of a relationship, that you valued, a friendship or a church group or something. But I just really think that doing some of that, realizing that grief is not just about losing someone, or some sort of major event. Sometimes it's small things
like a
that can lead to that.
Of grief.
Yeah. I will say this too: you can only grow to the level of your vulnerability. We talked about. Somebody said that to me, and I was like, "Man, that is so good." I can't remember who it was or if I read it or whatever, but I think for so long we've tried to hide and show up in community and in relationship and in church as having it all together. That helps no one, especially you. That just gets you further down. Doesn't help you. And so I would just consider that you only grow to your level of vulnerability, meaning that the more vulnerable you are, the more you're opening yourself up for God to grow you in areas.
And I would, right along with that, is just to say it's worth it. I know it's scary.
Does anybody else, though, have you ever sat outside your counselor's office and like, I'm not even going in there.
In my car.
In your car.
In the car.
Like, I'm not going in there. Do I have to do this? I'm good. I think I'm good. Am I good? Yeah, I'm good. I did that with Grief Share. I sat out in the parking lot and I was like, and I had friends who would they knew to text me 10 minutes before it started, like, get your tail in there. Get your tail in there. There were friends who made me go to counseling. I was like, I don't even like you anymore. But it is worth it.
You need your tail reminders.
Yes, I do.
Well, we all do. We all do. And sometimes you got to remind yourself to get your own tail in there. But when you realize that God can do miraculous things. He loves you, and he's got a good plan, and you can be healed. He's a healer. So it is worth the work and worth the time to put in.
Absolutely. We'd love to join you in your journey. In fact, if you text the word TALK to 81891. We're releasing a weekly devotional now, and we get you plugged into the Girl Talk group and all things Girl Talk, and we're excited about that. We'd love to pray for you. If you got a prayer request, you can also text the word prayer to 81891, or you can send us an email to girltalk@thelightfm.org. And it's been a great discussion. Thank you for what you both have shared today. Thanks for being vulnerable about your own journeys. And that's what it's all about. All of us pointing each other to Jesus and walking this road of life with you. That's what we love to do. And we're going to save you a seat next time we gather around these microphones for the next Girl Talk podcast.